Hey guys, me Josh here, bringing you a video on the newly released premium ship, the Saipan. The Saipan is the first premium aircraft carrier that World of Warships has released, so that's pretty awesome. Let's dive into the ship though. The Saipan is a tier 7 ship, so kind of right in the mid to maybe a little higher tier for some people. Basically what it is, it's kind of an indie haul. And it originally was in the game during closed beta, and they brought it back now. So pretty cool to see it back in the game. A lot of people from I think closed beta and alpha remember seeing it then, and now it's kind of back. And it's good to have it as a premium ship. Now let's look at the ship itself. The ship has two loadouts. It has a fighter loadout and a kind of a more balanced. It doesn't really have a strike, as in the Ranger has a strike and like a Lexington strike or something like that. But it has two. It has the fighter loadout, which is loaded on right now. 3 sets of fighters, 1 dive bomber, and the balanced is 2 sets of fighters and 2 torp bombers. So the one thing about this ship is that the dive bomber, you say, well, that's kind of interesting. These are tier 9 planes. These are technically Essex planes that are on this ship. They tend to be faster and they hit harder. So kind of good things about this ship, when you're running the dive bomber, although it's just the one, you'll see in the look below, they hit really, really hard. They have those 1,000-pound bombs, so they're pretty crazy that way. Also, the torp bombers are insanely fast for their tier. The torp bombers are rolling at 155 knots compared to the Ranger, which has 133s, and the Hear You, which has a 129 knots. So compared to that, they're going to get in really quick. One thing I noticed when I did play this on a balanced loadout was you could actually get that first strike off before the other carrier was even ready to defend. So kind of an interesting aspect. If you can get in and maybe take out Destroyer right away before the other team doesn't know what's going on, then there you go. It's kind of nice. The ship itself, compared to the other ones, 44,000 life, 44.6, decent. Speed 33 knots, relatively quick. And a thing to kind of point out on this ship too is the squads have 3 planes per. Now the dive bomber has 8. That's the one kind of outlier in this group. But the torp bombers and the fighters both have 3. The dive bomber has 8. And now when you look at the Ranger, it has 6 in each. And you look at the Hear You, it has 4 in each. So kind of interesting that they went with those numbers, but you got to keep in mind stronger planes, tankier planes, faster planes. If it had the same amount as if it had 6, it would have no competition. One thing that they had changed from the original testing on this was they went from the balanced loadout. The fighter, I believe, has stayed the same. The balance was 2 fighters and 3 torp bombers. So they've now taken that down to 2 and 2. From what I saw, apparently, it's tier 9 planes. The torps hit harder, and it was just one-shotting too many planes when it got into it. You have 9 tier 9 torpedoes hitting a tier 7 battleship, the tier 7 armor belt. It just would delete too many ships. So I do see that. I see some things in the ship that maybe they might change a little bit, and we can kind of get onto that in a little bit. Now, the strength of this ship, the fighters. The fighters are insane. They're insanely quick. They're insanely tanky for their tier because they're tier 9 planes versus tier 7 planes. And the highlights of this plane is its strafing ability. Now the planes do kind of lose the 1v1 fight, but they win the strafes. Insane strafes. You gotta think, USN strafes are crazy good. These are USN planes. Now we're gonna check out some highlights that I have on this from the gameplay. I went both loadouts. This one is with the fighter loadout, and we're gonna show right here really quick that the strafe, this is against a high-row balanced high-row, so 2-2-2, and just in one go, you can take down 2 torp squads. Bingo bango, no big deal, and you're kind of on to the next one. But the downside of the ship is, here's another strike, caught this, I believe this is the same high-row too, got to play about 4 or 5 games with it earlier, is the strafes are insane. This is where you will win the game for your team if you do roll this fighter, because of the lack of damage it can put out. You will just you nulligate that guy. You nulligate an enemy aircraft carrier. Now this is the dive bomber right here. 8 dive bombers. Remember, 8,000-pound bombs going on this battleship. Boom, just like that. 16k damage. 2 fires. That dude's feeling it. But that's the downside of this. And the downside is that you have no torps. Now here's a quick little torp highlight right here. Now torps are still good. This is the 2-2. This is a different game right here. Still has the damage to just go. The torps hit relatively hard, so being able to take out the battleship and keep rolling, so you have a good balance with the dive bombers or the fighters and the torp bombers. But that's the downside of the fighter, is you have one damaging plane. At least with the Ranger, you have two. Now, the two isn't going to hit as hard, but you do have two. So you have to really pay attention on where you're sending your dive bomber, what you're doing if you need to protect the cap. Here's a quick highlight of when there was a strike Lexington and a balanced Ranger. Now, let me just tell everybody that carriers are not my strongest suit, so just don't give me too much grief of how I play this. I'm trying my best, but this is kind of the strength. This is technically a tier 7 carrier versus tier 8 planes. Lexington and a Ranger, both trying to strike. I believe there was a battleship that they were trying to get down there, and really for how fast these planes are, we just completely nullified a double strike. These guys wasted probably the first few minutes of the game. I was still able to pump out damage and control their strike. I see this aircraft carrier having a good chance against kind of two classes. When I was playing my games, it had a really good. I did really well against strike because you could control it with the planes, the fighter planes, and you were still able to pump out. And balanced Ranger. So kind of a strike Ranger and a balanced Ranger, I think, were the two strong suits. But if you went against a fighter Ranger or a Hiryu with just a normal 2-2, I actually had some trouble. I think a Hiryu 2-2, it just kind of whoops on a Saipan all day long. And the balanced Ranger, or the fighter Ranger, was really tough to deal with. The fighters were kind of all over the place. They were relatively tanky. There's so many of them. And if you miss the barrage, then you just lost those fighters and you're kind of down, then down go your torp. I mean, it's that snowball effect that if you miss one, then you miss the other kind of thing. But I did enjoy the ship. The ship is very fun to play. Like I said, it's not my strongest class. So one, it's a great way to get some more practice in that kind of that good tier 7 tier. So you're not rolling like only high tiers and everything and kind of getting whooped the higher you go. It's a great way for USN captains to get retrained, get to that level 15 skill, so you can get the air superiority. So in that situation, you'd have 4 fighters instead of the 3. You'd have 9 dive bombers instead of the 8. So that's a good way to get that captain even higher. I threw my Lexington captain down on this, so it's a great way to get that kind of done, especially if you have like a 2-time or a 3-time weekend, what have you, or just your daily win regardless. And it's a premium, so it makes gets the extra captain experience for that, and it gets extra credits and all the goodies that come with the premium. But all in all, I think that the ship is kind of maybe missing something. I really feel like, you know, they changed it from the 2-3, the 2 fighters and the 3 torp bombers, because that was too strong. But now I don't know if it's strong enough, because I really feel like a skilled Hiryu can just absolutely wreck a Saipan day in and day out. And I really feel like a fighter Ranger is really hard to deal with. Now, of course, it's supposed to be. And people are saying, well, just roll fighter all day. But you don't do any damage. I played, I think, 2 games with the fighter loadout. And I think in one game I did 30,000 damage. In one game I did like 50,000 damage. You just have a hard time pumping out damage. Now, with the balanced loadout, I was still pumping out 80, 90, 100,000 damage per game. But I was, you know, it wasn't as easy. I feel like I could have done more in a Hiryu. I could have done more even in a Strike Ranger or something like that. But I digress. All in all, the ship was pretty sweet. I'm really happy that World of Warships has its first premium aircraft carrier. It's now in the game. Has some unique things with the 3 planes per squad and the loadouts and all that kind of stuff. So I do find that relatively interesting. Let me know, guys, if you have played with the Saipan, if you bought the Saipan, if you fought against the Saipan, how you've been seeing it, how it's worked for you, and what you guys are seeing it. I have been me, Josh, guys. Let me know down below how your games are going. Good luck out in the seas, guys, and I'll catch you next time.